And talking about the virtues, how is your understanding of that? Because it's different, you know. It has a certain.
Let me say that
is it something we can get to, or is it more something that has to happen?
Yes. Oscar's take on that, what he explained, was virtues are qualities of the essence. They are spontaneous, they cannot be imitated. At the same time, there were some certain postures that he practiced, and we should try to be virtuous, and we try to. So how can you solve this paradox that they are they're spontaneous, and still you have to do something about? I did not teach the virtues in my Berkeley stage. Because of that, the virtues didn't go into the Enneagram tradition, or let's say this kind of culture that emerges, very, very poor in understanding. I didn't feel ready. I was using it, but without mentioning the names. I was using it because to some extent I took the role of a taskmaster. I had a lot of authority in that group. People, I remember when Muktananda, I visited Muktananda's ashram during a session when he was in Oakland, living there, and I was impressed how he only have to suggest something, and his suggestions became orders. And I remember a friend I had made in his ashram says, Baba suggested I get married to so and so, so I'm going to do that. See, it's married to so and so, not just to get a suggestion to get married, but married to this lady. So when somebody becomes an object of great faith or positive transference, however you call it, it comes with a possibility of influence, and I used a little bit that influence, but without putting it in the form of a format. You need to practice humility, you need to practice this or that. Like in my conversations in a group situation, I would reflect this or that to this person, maybe you try to do this or that. And I'm glad I did not become more specific, because seeing how things become dogmas, it would become now too flat. Now I don't even speak so much of virtues, but I invite people for a prolonged reflection on what was the, as we call it in the Sevilla Symposium, the gesto reparador. If there's a way of being in the world which is a sick gesture, as a neurotic gesture, what's the gesture that would be the mirror image of that? What would be how would you heal that
healing gesture,
that approach to things? What would be what feels? And I try not to get stuck in the words of the virtues so much, because whatever the word is, detachment, humility, it can become a stereotype, it can be a form of abuse, it can get in the way of finding something more specific and more subtle. It's like the word God. I think for many people God is an obstacle. They cannot get to God because they have an idea of God. And then.
So that sounds also as if you lead people to find out themselves.
Yes.
Very much.
To go into their experience and use some ideas as a springboard, and not to get stuck on the idea.
And how does this enter the Sat work, which is your work, which is a work on 4 modules over a certain time, several years, with many different ingredients? As you said, it's not only the psychology of inner types, there are many more things in it.
Yes. Essentially, my proposition at the beginning was, I hope that this map, the Enneagram, will become alive in the different laboratories. So we have a psychotherapy laboratory, where people learn to help each other according to certain notions. But then the Enneagram comes alive there, because whatever is happening includes the point of view that a certain kind of personality is there causing trouble or getting in the way of the real person. But even in things like bodywork, people have deep experiences in bodywork that are bodywork plus awareness of their personality. A person who is a 5, let's say, a 5, too inhibited, too much privation, too much turning against impulses, will find that in making a movement falls short of getting to the end. Even in a drawing will not use much space. In writing may write with little space, small letters, or maybe letters don't even touch one another. Mm-hmm. They're isolated. So whatever happens in this sphere of character goes into everything. So I try to make something that has many facets, and there's a facet for negative emotions, and a facet for positive emotions too. There's development of compassion. Originally it was just the idea of the ideal of love, as the opposite of the egoist. The ego is seeking love, and the essence is loving. But now I have refined that with the idea of the 3 loves, and I think the essence of character is the imbalance between the 3 loves. Mm-hmm. That we should have a living tripod. The psyche is like a tripod, it needs 3 feet to be supported on. Your 2 legs are not enough. It's like you don't have a triangle which is minimal surface with 2 points. You have 3 points. But in most people there's one love that's lacking because its function is crazily taken up by another. So instead of having eros, some people, instead of seeking the animal way for delight, for pleasure, they're praying to God, make me happy, God. There's a kind of hope for ecstasy from heaven. And you cannot get satisfaction from devotion that is meant to come from your animal self. But if you have a connection to the animal self, then you can have mystical ecstasy. Mm-hmm. Because you have the organ for enjoyment if you have that other breakthrough. So that's one of the elements of Sat now throughout Sat. That you could say is very much linked to the Enneagram, but it's like the inmost Enneagram, I think is the structure. The innermost Enneagram. Uh-huh. It's the 3 loves and the distortions of love, the substitutes of love, the false ideas about love that go with each of the perversions of love. Each character is a perversion, a set of perversions of love. So your question is, how does it get worked out? The Enneagram is a map. If you just present, like some people do, Enneagram courses, you cannot have so much transformative value if you make it a study of the map by itself. To make it, it must be a study of yourself, and to get an experience of yourself, you have to get human relations, you have to have talk, you have to have movement, You have to have music, listening, imagery, something else.
Mhm, mhm. How does music enter in transformative processes?
You have the three loves made alive.